Good evening, good evening, good evening. I am Derek Terry. I'm here for Real World News, and we have, I guess, the Carolina Panther there, Reginald Kearney. We have Shar Toppin. So, how's everybody doing?
Tapping.
Tapping, I'm sorry. Everybody's doing fine. And we have Tony Breedlove.
How many Tonys was that?
I don't know, but it's Breedlove, so it just flows. The magic producer.
I'm
So,
not
want to
paying
welcome, huh?
I'm not paying you.
That's okay. But welcome everybody. So everybody doing okay?
Yeah.
This is our season finale. Our season finale. We got a break for a couple of weeks, couple of months, whatever it is. So we're gonna get right into the show. So we're gonna focus. The first topic we're gonna focus on is the National Pan-Hellenic Council, or what we call the Divine Nine, was mainly comprised of predominantly African American fraternity and sororities. So we're going to talk about that and the positive impact they have in the communities. The second topic we're going to talk about is marijuana or reefer or weed or whatever people call it, or whether or not it should be legalized and what are the pros and cons of doing that. And then the last topic we're going to talk about is something that presidential candidate Kamala Harris is proposing a extended school year, elementary school based, and we want to talk about the pros and cons of that. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to jump right into the first topic, and hopefully my Divine Nine group will chime in. But I just want to briefly give everyone just a breakdown of who makes up the Divine Nine, and pretty much in the order of conception. So first, I'm an alpha, so Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. We have Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. We have Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. We then have Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated, Sigma Gamma Rho, who's actually celebrating their Founders Day today. They're 97 years old, so shout out to Sigma Gamma Rho for celebrating your 97th Sigma Versity, as well as Iota Phi Theta Fraternity Incorporated. So before we get into the impact of the community, I do want to ask Shar, because I know we've had a conversation, and you said you had no idea about the Black fraternities and sororities.
Well, no, I know they exist, but growing up in New York City proper and going to a community, a local college in the city, and I don't think there was a sorority at my college at the time, or at least I wasn't made aware of one. So it's outside of my experience.
Okay. And of course, my frat brother, Reginald Kearney, I know he's very aware. So I'm not going to ask you to go too much in detail yet, but I guess a little synopsis of what you understand the Divine Nine to be when it comes to the relevance in the community.
Party time. But, overall, we do a lot of good work in the community, mentoring and scholarships and health screenings and, the gamut, whole gamut of things that we do in the community. So we out there.
Okay, because what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to share this as y'all were talking, and some reason it's not letting me do it. So, but before I get into that, trying to share, I think a lot of people, like Reggie, you had mentioned before, that the myth or the stereotype is that all we do is party. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, we do party, but we do work hard, because really the principles in which the Divine Nine were found on, with scholarship and helping out the community, really those are the pillars from all the fraternities and sororities to be a positive impact in the community. And traditionally, we were founded because of a lot of the injustices that were going on in the time. When you look at Alpha Phi Fraternity being founded in December 4th, 1906 at Cornell University, you had 7 men, which we call Jewels, who came about to bring not only African-American men together, but to also ensure that we are fostering and looking after our African-American women, and eventually evolve and expand it. So although it's predominantly African-American, it's open to any race, color, or creed. So we want to make sure that we put that emphasis on it. But when a lot of people look at what's going on around the world and look at the communities, there's a lot of things that we do that go unnoticed. So when we talk about Alpha for Alpha Fraternity, we're talking about our 4 national programs. We have our Brothers Keeper program, which we're making sure that we're looking after our senior brothers, or those brothers who may be disabled, they're widows, making sure that there's anything that we can do, whether it's cutting the grass, going grocery shopping, whatever it may be. That's like one of the initiatives, Brothers Keeper. We also have our Voteless People, the Hopeless People, which focuses on voter registration and voter education. And we also talk about issues. We don't get into pick this president, but what we do get into is those issues that are relevant to the African American community, but the community as a whole. Then we also have Project Alpha, which focuses on enhancing and improving the self-esteem of our youth by offering programs that focus around sex education, and also focus around things that are going to make them a productive citizen in society. So this is for our young males. And then we also have go to high school, go to college, which is kind of self-explanatory. You know, the whole goal is we want you to get through high school, but we also want you to look at college. But even if they don't get to college, we want to make sure that we give them the necessary skills to where if they decide to go to military or trade school, that they're fully equipped. And then the last program that we have, and I think I mentioned all of them. Oh, I mentioned all of them. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mentioned all. That's 4. So those are our 4 national programs. So, Reggie, the question I want to ask you: what are some things that you have seen in the community? And it doesn't necessarily have to be Alpha; it can be any organization on Divine Nine that has made a positive impact or a long-standing positive impact in the community.
Well, I think the mentorship programs have done well in the community, along with the Get Out the Vote programs that everyone has participated in. I think the most effective one has probably been the Get Out the Vote campaign, because the simple fact that we take time out to go register people to vote. And I think that's very effective. And I would say second would be the mentoring programs that we offer, because I remember the first year that we did it in our chapter, it was a good turnout, and the parents really appreciate it, especially the single moms that were raising young men. They really appreciate the fact that Black men were mentoring their kids, so that was a good feeling, and man, I think that, the one program that we focus on internally, the Brothers Keepers program, is a good program too. To be able to go out and help the brothers who aren't able to help themselves or help their widows, So, those are the 3, how I would rank the 3. And, I think we've had a positive impact on the community. I think we can do more as far as having a stronger impact in the community, but at least we've laid the foundation in the community.
Okay. So, sure. And this is something, because I know when you say, I think I sent you a list of some of the prominent members and the Divine Nine. Is there any particular one that stood out for you that you were like, wow, I didn't know they were part of Divine Nine?
Well, I wouldn't have had that thought because unfortunately I didn't even know about the Divine Nine in the first place. So, it doesn't surprise me. I recognized a good number of the people on the list that you sent me, and I guess it didn't surprise me that there were so many successful members. But I'm curious if they're around the country. I would guess various chapters of all of these fraternities are around the country. How big, could they garner enough do they have enough numbers to become a very strong voting bloc? Or do you think that that's something that could or should evolve? Because that's something that I've always had a problem with in our community, is that, you know, unlike the Korean community or the Hasidic, the Jewish community in Brooklyn and other communities, there's never really seemed to be a cohesiveness that we could use as a voting bloc, you know, like the United Teachers Federation and all of these other groups that seem to have a lot of power and sway and influence and get wooed by people who are running for office. Do you think that the Divine Nine as a group could utilize that power and influence to become such a bloc?
Well, they do to a degree, and the significant difference between the Divine Nine and, say, those teacher organizations are lobbying for their candidate of choice. We as Divine Nine cannot lobby for a candidate of choice. We can lobby for policy of choice.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you individually want to do that, you can do that, but the organization can't go on record and say that we're supporting this candidate over this candidate. Now, you can wear your letters. That's entirely up to you, but in no way is the fraternity or sorority endorsing a particular elected or soon to be elected candidate. So, but what we do is most of the organizations have some type of voter awareness or voter education built into their mission. I know we do, and I think most of them do around this time, especially, I remember when Obama was running, that we were galvanized. I mean, we were all working as one. So I don't know the particular details of what Alpha is going to be doing in the summer, but I do know that there is a push for us to get with the quote unquote hip hop community and try to get those young people out there to vote, and not necessarily say you should vote for this candidate, but look, these are the issues that are affecting your community. You need to educate yourself on the candidates, but you need to also get yourself registered to vote. And that's really the key, is getting a lot of these young voters registered, or these young citizens registered to vote. When you look at, like, if I look at like Alpha Kappa Sorority Incorporated, a lot of them have a variety of different programs. They call them targets, at least when I looked at it, but they have HBC for Life, a call to action. So if you look what's going on in the state of Maryland and maybe throughout the United States, there's a push, and Reggie mentioned this last show, there's a push to get equitable funding in HBCUs. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, like the state of Maryland has been deprived of that for years. So there's a push and a drive, I believe it's actually Wednesday at the State House at 1 o'clock, maybe tomorrow at 1 o'clock, where you have organizations such as Alpha Kappa, Alpha Sorority Incorporated, and maybe other organizations that will lobby and not necessarily force the governor to give this money, but at least let people know in Annapolis, look, we want this money for this HBCUs. So those are some of the things when you talk about call to action that a lot of people in the community don't even know that we're doing behind the scenes. But, you know, we don't do this for the glory. We don't do it for the fame. We just do it.
Right.
And, you know, the other thing to look at, there are approximately 2.5 million members in the Divine Nine active in the Divine Nine. And we may have another 1 million or 2 million that are inactive. Inactive meaning that they haven't paid their dues to the general organizations. So, you know, that's still a large base that, you know, 2.5 active can influence one person. So when you double that, that's 5 million. So, you know, we do play a role when it comes to pushing public policy, to possibly getting people elected that promote the policies that we're looking for in these communities.
Right.
See if we got any questions on here. Reggie?
No, I was chatting with in a private chat with Tony, and we were discussing she was discussing the fact that, you know, she doesn't see a lot of movement among the Divine Nine when it comes to politics. And like I told her that when it comes to the politics, we have to be careful because of our nonprofit status, and we can't jeopardize that. But then I also went on to say to her too that in the church of today, the same thing is happening because of nonprofit, your nonprofit status. The government is making it so hard on you that you have to be careful what you do when it comes to politics in the community and stuff.
Yeah, because I think the other thing to look at, although we're talking about public policy, there's other things that the fraternity sororities do. I know, like I'll use Sigma Gamma Rho, for instance, they have a Project Reassurance, which focuses on healthy choice, healthy living, healthy generations. They also have the Hattie McDaniel Cancer Awareness and Health Program. When you look at Iota Phi Theta, they have delete blood cancer. So they do things that are trying to reduce, blood cancer. But they also have, and I'm going to make sure I pronounce this right, it's called Afya Jima, meaning good health in Swahili, 360 Health Initiative. And it's a comprehensive program to address health issues, affecting the fraternity members, but also something that can build on trying to help out members in the community. So when I look at the communities and I look at the community in which we live in, we're very, very active, but there are over, make sure I got my numbers right, there are over 6,600 chapters located in the United States and internationally. For the most part, every major urban area either has an African American fraternity or sorority that is present in that area. I don't know if we're all located in all 50 states, but I would say that we are located in probably, I'm guessing, 45 out of the 50 states. And that number may be off by one or two less or one or two more. I also know over the years, we, the fraternity sororities, awarded millions of dollars in academic scholarships to thousands of kids who that are looking to go to a either 2-year or 4-year university. So there are a lot of opportunities out there for the community to not only embrace what we have to offer, but also for us to embrace what we can give to the community when it comes to whether it's scholarship or community service. And those things are just evident. And, with the emergence of the internet, people can always go on the website to truly see what they do and what their programs are, even if they're looking for, because a lot of people, at least in this county, talk about mentorship. I think some of the most frustrating part is when you offer a program that is free, you still don't have parents jumping on board. Mm-hmm. And I it's almost it's too late. Where are the mentoring programs? Well, the programs have been there, but to me, that's some of the frustrating part. When you have these mentor programs and you don't have parents taking advantage of it. It doesn't necessarily always have to be for a single parent or an at-risk student, but it's more or less just giving that student another, another ear and another voice that they normally would hear at home. And, you'll tell your son or daughter, you'd be like, you know what, you need to prioritize. And all of a sudden, when they get to the mentoring group, we tell them the same thing. Oh, you saying just like what my dad or mom said. So sometimes they need to hear it from someone else for it to really resonate. Let's see if we got any questions. Y'all got anything on there?
No.
Okay. So that was just more, I expected more of the Greek community to get on here asking questions. They may have, but being that we're taking this is our season finale, we can work out those kinks to where we can hopefully find out what some of these questions are, because I sometimes get these questions after the show is ended and I'm like looking at it and I don't know why it didn't pop up. So that's something that we'll work out. So with that, I guess we're gonna go to a little bit more exciting topic for some others. We're gonna talk about the legalization, or should there be full legalization of marijuana, reefer, weed, cannabis, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to chime in last and throw my pro and con to it. So whoever wants to go first can go.
I guess I'll go first. I've seen other states that have legalized it. And they're having what looks like economic boons. They're making a lot of money off the taxation of it. money that can then be reinvested in schools and infrastructure, and I'm a big supporter of that. I think if they do legalize it, then they should rescind the convictions of people who've been arrested for it. And but obviously, I think that certain common sense legislation still needs to be put in place. Like, you can't drink alcohol at work. You can't be drunk on the job. So same thing stands for reefer or weed, as you call it. You shouldn't be high at work. And certain career paths, you shouldn't be allowed to do it at all. You know, like if you work in the hospital or if you take care of children, things of that nature. I can't really imagine the negative right now. You know, the pharmaceutical industry is against it, at least until they can get their piece of the pie. You know, the only negative thought that I can associate with it is if they make it legalized and then Monsanto gets their hands on it and messes it up, just like they mess up all the food that they genetically modify. So I think that I'm not sure why the federal government isn't jumping on board, since so many states are, like even Canada has legalized it. So I just think it's time. There are significantly bigger issues in my mind when it comes to other types of drugs, and certainly alcohol. And that sort of sums up my take on it.
I think overall it should be legalized. You look at the amount of money they can make off of it by taxing it. You look how much money is being made on the black market. You know, it might as well. You know, and I agree with Cheryl. You know, you've got to regulate it somehow. You don't want your doctor examining you or operating you after you done smoke a joint. Okay, you don't want that. But the thing is, like here in our area in DC, you know, it's like you're walking through a cloud of smoke all the time because it's legal to smoke in DC. Now you're not supposed to be smoking it on the streets, but they do it anyway. You know. So in the summertime, you know, you're riding down a highway in the streets of DC, and somebody has the window down. You know, you got a buzz by the time you get to the next stoplight. You know. So
I went to my brother's wedding in Canada, and it's fully legal there. You can walk down the street, outside a restaurant, in the park. But I find, you know, passing through a fog of that, you know, just as, you know, people should be mindful of that if they're around other people, just like you should be mindful of other people in your vicinity if you're smoking a cigarette. I'd certainly rather see people doing that than drinking a 40 on the corner. But again, common sense legislation, you don't sell to people under a certain age, and everything else that I said before. So we agree on something, Reggie.
yeah. Want smoke one?
Huh?
Well, I guess because I'm in the middle, I'm going to be the one that's going to disagree. And I don't even like smoking, so that's just me. But
Here comes Tony.
I always, figured she probably just got done smoking a joint. That's probably why she came on.
No, she maybe had a brownie.
But
I actually do have some edibles.
But that's not the same thing.
But let me say this: even with the edibles, I can't. I bought them and they've been sitting, right? Because when I didn't mean to interrupt your broadcast, but
yeah,
I did. So I got to
eaten some before the broadcast.
I got to tell you a story. So a friend of mine came in from Chicago and he was like, let's go to the weed store. And I'm like, I'm going to take you to one, right? That my son goes to. And I mean, they've got it set up like you walk in and it's all the glass cases. They've got crystal chandeliers. I mean, it's beautiful. And they've got all these little things, you know, with the samples and all this. So the girl, I said, well, that was waiting on us. I said, you know, I've never had edibles. I'm not a weed smoker. I just don't do that. She said, well, do you have any issues like back pain and stuff like that? And I said, yeah. She said, well, I've got the perfect thing for it. So she talks me into buying this little bitty, like this little canister, right? And Wait a minute. I'm going to get it for you. Wait.
Talk about a cliffhanger.
No, she's gonna come on, and so I'm gonna be 3-on-1. And now she said she disagrees. I can't remember if she said that, but while she's getting this little canister, I disagree. And the only reason now she back. I figured she come on when I'm about to talk.
Finish your statement.
So she tells me about this little, this little coffee bean. It's like covered in chocolate. And she says, well, all you need is one. I still have the whole canister minus 4 or 5.
Oh, so you tried it a few times, did you?
So I'm going to tell you the story. So she says, all you need to do is just take one of these, right? She said,
like a raisinette.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's a hard candy. It's like a mocha bean covered in chocolate. So she says, all you need to do is take one and, your back will relax and blah, blah, blah. So I get home and I think, well, gosh, I'm not feeling anything. So I ate another one and it started tasting really good. And I'm thinking it's still not working. So I ended up taking like 4 of them. And all of a sudden it was like, boom, it hit me. I was high for like 3 days.
How was your back though?
What back? But if you can see that, it's Kiva Terra.
But is that the CBD stuff or the THC stuff? I think one is psychedelic and one is just like pain relief and
right. This one says, I don't know what it says. I can't tell, but it's not the same stuff like you get. What's the weed one? THC?
I think so.
Yeah, it's not the THC because this does not come up in like a drug test.
Yeah. No, they've got stores all over the country now, and a lot in New York that sell products with CBD.
Something like
and
that?
So a lot of health food stores are selling, soda drinks and stuff like that are supposed to be calming and relaxing. I don't know. I don't really drink soda, so.
Yeah, but I thought to chime in on this part of it because
if you were high, that had the THC in it.
For 3 days?
No one told you to eat 4.
They're really good, though.
Yeah.
Really good.
You should have some of those and watch the Trump impeachment hearings.
Then I'd probably end up with a hole in my wall because not a good idea.
So, Derek, what were you going to say?
Oh, we lost Reggie.
Well, he'll be back. So what I was going to say was you have to look at legalization of marijuana 2 different ways. I guess the federal government has said, okay, the states can decide what they want to do. So this is the problem that I have. By allowing the states to legalize something that is illegal on the federal level, you've pretty much told people, well, guess what? You can go ahead and smoke this weed, but don't bother trying to get a federal job. Don't bother trying to get in the military. Don't bother trying to really get any job that requires a drug test. So to me, the message it sends, especially when you look at our African-American men and live in these urban cities, what's the likelihood of them getting the types of jobs that they need if it relates to the federal government, if the federal government is still going to keep marijuana use illegal?
Well, if they're looking for a federal job, I would expect they're not engaging in drug use anyway.
Right.
Well, I'm just trying to tell you, you would say that, but someone who was in the military, there's a lot of people who did drugs. A lot of people who got kicked out.
I can understand it.
I used to be one of the drug monitors, whatever. I had to tell people, look, you got a drug test today. Huh? Yeah, you got a drug test today.
Well, New York City,
like when you look at Colorado, I was in Colorado for 4 years, so I was there. We were told we can't go to certain places. I was hungry. I'm gonna tell you this story. I just got off the plane. I had my uniform on. I hadn't even had time to change, and my hotel was not gonna be ready for like another 3 hours. So I was like, well, I'm gonna ride around and get something to eat. So I said, where's a good like hole in the wall place where I can just spend not a lot of money but get a lot of food? gotta go near the industrial area. So I'm like, all right, cool. So I'm driving near the industrial area. I'm like, I smell barbecue and all that. I said, this is what I'm talking about. So I pull over. I said, how much? He says $10, all you can eat. Cool. So I paid the $10. I'm sorry. Before I paid the $10, he said you have to walk in and you have to buy some paraphernalia or something like that. I'm like, paraphernalia? What are you talking about, right? You got to get some paper or something. I'm like, huh? What are you talking about? And that actually was a weed spot. So basically, everyone came there, smoked their weed, and they got to eat as much as they wanted to eat for $10. As hungry as I was, I had to leave because one, we're not supposed to be around there. But the whole point of the matter is that you have a state where, yes, it may be booming. Look at Colorado. But the downside is where you pull all that money. You can't typically put it in a bank that's insured by the FDIC because it's illegal. And I don't know whether or not the federal government is well, I wouldn't say the federal government, whether or not the Congress will vote on such a bill that will legalize it.
You know why they won't?
Who's going to control the money? It's like alcohol when they had prohibition.
No, it goes even further than that because you're talking about big pharma.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about pharmaceutical companies who continue to make hundreds of millions and billions of dollars on cancer drugs and cancer.
Oxycontin.
Yeah,
No, but believe me, right? People are making a lot of money for these weed dispensaries. But the thing about it, those licenses can cost you as much as $500,000, and it's a lot of money just to have a weed store.
but it's
And then the other part of it is, and I think Charlotte mentioned it before, if you have a record, then you can't even get the store because you got a felony. So it's like you got put in jail for selling weed. Now people can sell the same thing that you sold, but you can't sell it because you still got a record.
Well, I think that, like I said before, the laws have to change. But in New York State, I think it was de Blasio, in New York City, I'm not sure if it's the entire state, but you can no longer, when you're drug testing, you can't screen for marijuana use. So you can screen for, unless it's for a particular type of job, like driving a car,
that's what I was
in the medical
saying.
field. But
Because,
for secretaries,
see, a lot of people here
Mm.
were coming in to drive transit, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, because marijuana has been legalized here for recreational use, they figured, oh, well, now I can smoke it. But when they come get a job or come to try and get a job and I send them through a drug test, and then they wonder why they're not hireable.
Mm-hmm.
It's because federal law trumps, I hate that word, trumps state.
Yeah,
especially when we're talking about transportation.
Yeah.
So they're not going to, there's so many different facets as to why I don't believe that they will legalize it on a federal level for medicinal purposes across the board. They're not, they can't do it. They cannot do it. I have drivers that got back problems, anxiety problems, all kind of different things going on. And for them to then say, oh, well, let me go to the doctor and get a prescription because now I can use it for medicinal purpose, now means that they are not eligible to drive our buses.
And this is like for me, and this is probably like where the only part that I actually will agree with Reggie and Shara is like parts of me say, you know what, you should legalize it, because when I look at alcohol and its legalization throughout the world, I don't really know of anyone who has died from smoking weed.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if anybody. When you think about it, I'm saying I think it does kind of give you some of the same effect to a degree. I'm assuming that alcohol would give you, but alcohol is instantaneous, where it can put you to the point to where I don't know. I don't do either one, so I just have to guess. I'm just guessing. But when I've seen people smoke weed, they don't even feel like driving. They don't feel like driving.
Yeah, they're different kind of stimulants, I think. One I always had the impression revved you up, and the other revs you down.
Yeah, and
so to speak.
when I look at alcohol just became big business. You got liquor tax. if they had the prohibition way back in the day, you look at some of the people and how they got wealthy, like the Kennedys. You got bootlegging. So, when you have marijuana, now it's still controlled by the state. When it comes to growing it, when it comes to selling it, it's controlled by the state. So that's about the only part of it that I would say, well, if you're going to legalize alcohol, you might as well legalize marijuana. But I think some people's argument, well, if you're going to legalize marijuana, you might as well legalize crack, legalize cocaine. So it's one of those things where when I look at marijuana, I guess the biggest thing that upsets me is the smell.
Yeah,
because when people smoke cigarettes, I can tell that they smoke cigarettes. I mean, they can come up and work and I can tell. But when you smoke weed, weed ain't going nowhere. Weed funk up the whole entire area. And imagine going to work. What if you're a teacher? You going to work, you smell like straight weed all day, every day.
Though people need to use common sense. I've seen people show up to work.
No, they smoke one joint. You can smoke one joint. If it's legal, there's nothing saying you gotta take a shower and wash up.
That's not true. Look, alcohol is legal. That doesn't mean you can show up at work drunk and expect to keep your job.
Show up drunk. Smoking weed ain't gonna make you totally high, like to the point to where it just be a light buzz. When people think about it, when you go to happy hour, you may drink one drink, right? You go right back to work. I know people go right back to work. They just have a drink, go right back to work.
I don't know. I'll look at somebody and say, did you have a liquid lunch today? Go home.
Oh, you ain't been to D.C. then. You ain't been to D.C. because a lot of people that drink alcohol during lunch. Yeah. A lot. And I know they do in New York. So New York is not any different.
Well, I call people out on it if I see it, obviously, and make them go home, or depends on how egregious it is. But again, common sense.
Why do you make them go home?
I can't have them being at work reeking of alcohol. Are you kidding me?
But what if they just had one drink?
They're not drunk.
I mean, they do it. I mean, if you go in these restaurants in D.C. during lunchtime, these dudes trying to make deals, these power plays.
But no, you're talking about executive level people. I'm talking about
you're talking common folks.
An administrative assistant, an accounts payable clerk, a mailroom kid.
So we gonna discriminate based on job title?
No, I'm just saying that I have less authority to send an executive home than I do, not.
I mean, let them have some fun. I mean, if they're not turning up the office, let them go do it. Sure.
Look, let's sit back and watch and see how well Canada does. If after a year or two of it being legalized, there's not a massive issue of unemployment to people who aren't hireable because they didn't apply common sense, then we see it doesn't work. But we don't about a country that
we don't know if Canada made it legal throughout the country, then they can't technically fire them for smoking weed.
That's not true. You can still have something written in your policy that says, but for these jobs, these exceptions, just like
certain jobs, yeah.
Right? If you're driving,
I understand that.
If people are, if you're responsible for people's safety, if you're driving, if you're operating, if you're dealing with children, I think that's just common sense.
But yeah, and I think to me that's part of the fear of legalizing, because once you tell someone it is okay to do it, you're gonna have more people try it. Imagine a pilot just before he gets on the plane. Just before he gets on the plane, let me go ahead and smoke a joint real quick because it's legal.
Right. Wait for those dogs to come barking at you too.
No, but I'm saying it's legal. I'm saying if it's legal, that's illegal, yes. But when it's legal,
so what?
You
mean the
you've
pilot?
Thus given people, huh?
You mean the pilot, or you mean the people who buy tickets and
just in general, when you've made something legal, people more likely to try it.
Okay.
When you make it illegal, they're more likely to try it illegally. So either way, they're gonna try it. I think Martina Lewis, she said legalized or not, people still gonna use it. The only difference is that now they're gonna be able to smoke it anywhere and there will be no penalty. So they're gonna use it.
Right now, you can't smoke cigarettes in parks. All right, you can't smoke cigarettes within 500 feet or so many feet in front of an office building. I think that they could apply laws to that just like they do with cigarettes. You know,
Yeah, but does the weed have the same effect as a cigarette? I don't smoke, so somebody
I don't
got to
know.
tell me. Probably
I,
somebody who had a bean,
I wouldn't
ate a
know,
bean
but
can
I
tell me.
can tell you though, at my first cigarette of the day, back when I used to smoke a cigarette, I'd get a little dizzy. I don't know. How about you, Tony? Your first
See,
cigarette in the
Reggie grew
morning,
up doing
Yeah,
Woodstock. He can tell me.
yeah.
you can get a
You grew
little
up doing
dizzy.
Woodstock, Reggie?
I didn't hear you.
What did he say?
Didn't you grow up doing Woodstock? You can tell.
Yeah, I grew up doing Woodstock. Okay. Look, I don't have no problem. I don't have no problem with people smoking weed. Okay, the marijuana. But this is the whole thing. It's gonna be I'll probably be dead and gone before they even get to the third state that legalizes it. It's gonna be a slow process, like you said.
Third
Federal
state. It's
government,
more. It's 11 states.
11 states where it's gonna be a slow process to get to 15, because as long as the federal government is have their laws and the state has their laws, a lot of the more conservative states aren't going. The red states aren't going to vote to legalize it. You know, so it might be
But you
20 or
know
30
what?
years before they get
Once
to 50 states.
once they start seeing these other states as they are making tax money hand over fist with their economy booming, like at the end of the day, dollars talk. And I think that's probably going to be the deciding factor, not some altruistic understanding and acceptance of the fact that it has medicinal purposes. And quite frankly, I would rather people smoke a joint than take Valium or any of these other drugs on the advertisements that tell you if you experience feelings of suicide, or it'll ruin your kidney, or it'll ruin your intestines, or you might get like, who wants to take pharmaceuticals anymore, because they all cause a bigger problem than they're solving. So I don't know, it's an interesting discussion. We'll see what happens.
All right. So we're gonna move on to our last topic, and hope I never can pronounce her first name right. But I'm hoping I'm pronouncing Senator Camilla.
Oh God, you're so bad with
Yeah.
names there.
Kamala.
I am bad with names. What is it? I said that I'm bad with names.
Kamala.
We're gonna say Senator Harris. How about that?
That works.
All right. So who's also running for president, has proposed a bill that would extend the school day for about, I think for elementary, I think 500 schools or something like that, elementary. And I can see the pros and cons to it. The pros, I can see that the kids would definitely get more academic rigor. They would get a chance to not only develop their social skills, but their academic skills. The parents could benefit because they would have more time to work, or they would not have to spend that money on daycare. The negative side to it is, as a former teacher, hell no, I'm not trying to work past the hours I'm supposed to already be working. I'm already doing 10 to 20 hours of work for free. So now you're going to extend it 9 more weeks. So now I could do another 9 weekends, or another 10 hours, which equates to about 90 hours of work for free. Now, of course, well, you get paid. Sometimes pay is not enough. Teachers at the end of the day, they have families. They have things to do. If I'm working 8 to 6, especially during daylight saving times, my day is shot.
Mm-hmm.
And think about it, you finished 8 to 6, now I got to go home, and now I got to finish doing some other work. So I'm just saying, as a teacher, I would say hell to the no, because I don't have time for all that. That's just me.
The article that I read suggested that it's not going to be mandated for teachers, and that they'll find other teachers who are interested in working the time. In New York, I think this would be a huge boon. Every single day, we either have people in our office or people who are interviewing, single parents in particular, usually mothers, who are struggling to work 9 to 5 and leave on time so that they can drive to wherever they need to drive to, or take mass transit wherever they need to go pick up their child and go home. And so, we've become a little flexible, and we give people the option. You can work 9 to 5, 8 to 4, or 10 to 6. And for some parents, even that's not flexible enough. So I think I feel more sorry for the children, who, so many of whom don't enjoy school, at the thought that they're going to be there for a few more hours, but hopefully they can find professionals and they can find a curriculum for those hours that will be engaging for those students. But I see it as a plus for struggling single parent households. Reggie?
What about you, Reggie?
You got some school systems now doing year-round schooling anyway. You know, I don't really agree with extending the days of the time that the kids go to school, you know, in the elementary school, because it's going to be boring for them. They're going to be irritable and tired and ready to go home. You know, so I think we need to move more towards the year-round school programs instead of lengthening the day for a lot of these young people. And because the parents are going to end up using the schools as a daycare, really. You know, and that's what's going to happen.
Well, see, here's my other argument with extending it. Now, although it's a pilot program, anything which is a pilot which becomes successful ends up branching off into other school districts, which means what? Now you have to find this revenue, this money that's going to pay for it. Now, at first, you probably will find some teachers say, oh, yeah, I'll do it for the extra money. And then they're like, wait a minute. I'm doing this. I'm working year round. And I still got to go home, do lesson plans. If they're special educated, they got to do IEPs. So what happens, all you did is just increase the workload. You didn't decrease anything. And one of the biggest problems with extending the school year is always the added increase of workload. Because like I said, anything that's a pilot is going to require study, which is going to require research, which means the teacher have to do all this data. And everything is fine when you get the check. But then like for me, it wasn't really about the money. It's about my peace of mind. It was about, okay, I want to come home like normal folk and just sit down, kick my feet up and relax. You know, my wife, bless her heart, she comes home sometimes and still doing work. And I look at her like, I love you. And I go upstairs because I'm done with it. You know, that's just me. And you probably will have some teachers who really, the first year teachers, your second year, third year teachers that maybe don't have any kids, any major responsibilities, you know, they just trying to get their feet wet. So yeah, I'm all for it. But these veteran teachers who've been accustomed to having their summers off, now you want them to work year round? I just don't think that I don't really think it's going to fly. And the only way it's going to fly is if there's buy-in from those teachers.
That's assuming it's the same teachers, though, as opposed to a second shift. You know, there are a lot of unemployed teachers out there right now who would probably welcome an opportunity to come in and teach for 2 or 3 hours out of the day, depending on how long the day is extended.
Yeah, that could be the case, but then you have to deal with unions. Okay, they're not teachers anymore, so they're not protected by the union. And depending what state you're in, the unions can be beneficial. And then some states where the union is worthless because they don't really have any power. So I think when you look at extended school year, and depends on there's two models to it. There's the aftercare with the 2 hours, or there's the school year where basically you having the same school year, which I know some of them do, I think in Ohio, and they take 2 or 3 weeks off. Some of the charter schools have extended school year. So the teachers aren't necessarily getting any more money per se, if that makes sense. They're still getting that same daily rate. It's just they have to work more days. It's like a 10-month teacher, 11-month teacher, and a 12-month teacher. You're still getting the same rate, but the 11-month teacher by default is going to make more money because they're 11 months, but they're still doing more work. So that it really comes down to, you know, we have a national teacher shortage. So what is going to be the incentive for a teacher to really want to come in and do extended hours, or have an extended school year? You know, a lot of school systems sell the fact that, hey, you get the summers off, you get these vacations off. You can't sell that anymore when you're trying to recruit teachers. You just can't.
Again, that's if you're talking about the same teachers that are working that initial 40 hours a week or however many normal hours it is. If you're talking about unemployed teachers, or say teachers' assistants who are in the process of learning to become teachers, then that opens up more job opportunities for a whole nother section of people. The other thing that crosses my mind is this country has been very successfully practicing a program of dumbing down the country. And so many of these schools don't teach anything to begin with. I mean, look at how many people didn't know about the Tulsa massacre, if not for the Watchmen series. You know, so if they're not going to utilize this extra time to actually teach our kids something, to make sure that they can compete on a national and international level, then all it will be is sort of a babysitting option for kids, for parents who are working late. Now, with respect to Jacqueline's comment about when do they get to spend time with their families, if you've got somebody who's working 9 to 5, 9 to 6, can't get off work and has got a babysitter watching them for those hours before they get home, they're not with their family anyway. So at least if they're still in school, there's the opportunity to be learning something or participating in some kind of program that expands their minds or bodies in some way. But again, only if it's worth it. You know, if they're just sitting there counting the cracks on the walls, then it's not worth it.
But you know, it's still not worth it because we're talking about the teachers. We got to talk about the kids. I mean, most of us as adults already work 9, 10 hours a day. You're talking about sticking a kid in school for 8 to 10 hours a day. I mean, that's crazy. You know, kids got to have a life. You know, I mean, I remember back in the day we went to school from 8 to 4. That was too long. Then it got shortened to 8 to 3, 9 to 2, 9 to 3. You know, I don't think you can get no more learning done in 10 hours as opposed to 6 hours.
Yeah, and I think the other piece that's missing, because, you know, with my wife being a PE health teacher, I've noticed the decline of fitness and health in elementary schools. I've noticed it. So you want kids to be in there for additional 2 hours, but you're not doing anything to even boost up their energy. In some cases, they're not even getting healthy food. Now, I can see the added plus to this particular pilot because it will bring in money to hopefully promote a healthy diet, but there should be some type of fitness component when we talk about these additional 2 hours, or depending on the model, it may extend throughout the year. The only downside to that, and I keep talking about money, when anytime you do a pilot, if the pilot is successful, then where are you going to find the money to spread it throughout the nation? You know, we're gonna have to take a hard, long look at how you actually fund this, because remember, teachers don't want those 2 additional hours. What they want is a pay raise. I'm saying you giving me 2 hours is not giving me a pay raise. That's just saying I got to work 2 more hours just to get more money on my check. That's sort of like, yeah, I got you. You making more money? No, yeah, I am, but I got to work harder just to get it. And the way some teachers look at it, we work hard enough and we're already giving you 10. I know for a fact they are getting 10 hours a week of free work. These school systems are pimping these teachers. I mean, they're pimping them hard. And my thing is, when you have a teachers union or association, they know damn well they're getting pimped. In my mind, these teacher associations are useless if you know these teachers continuously go out there and give up all this free work. And now you got the audacity to say, hey, we'll go ahead and extend the school year. We'll give you 2 hours of extra pay so you can go home and still do more work. That's just my take on it. So, but
it's just presidential politics, propaganda to get elected. Okay, what school system is going to extend the hours of the students and the teachers? Okay, I mean, some of these ideas these guys come up with when they run for president is ridiculous. Okay, I just think that's a ridiculous idea. You know, I just feel like it's ridiculous.
Okay, and I'm going to read.
I was just going to say, and I know a lot of single parents who think this would be an answer to so many of their problems. You know,
but the kids still comes back to the kids.
Again, if you make it, and putting aside for a moment the potential negative impact on teachers, let's assume for a moment that teachers were all for it and that they benefited from it. It has to be engaging for the kids. It's human nature. If you enjoy doing something, you're going to do it and you're going to want to do more of it. That's just a fact. If you enjoy doing something, you're going to make time to do it. If you don't enjoy it, every minute is torture. So if they're going to extend the school hour for kids, which I think she's doing for the parents and the children, then make it engaging. Invest in a program that inspires kids to enjoy learning, or even, more physical activity, since so many of them are turning into little fat meatballs.
All right. Well, before we close out on this topic, since I've been saying my wife so much, she actually commented, so I'm just going to read her comment. And Marie, hold up, Martina, she said, agreed. If you extend the school day and nothing is really being taught, then what's the point? And my wife mentioned, with the outdated school buildings all over the country, are school buildings prepared with HVAC or electrical capacity to house students in the summer? Some of these schools are not. When it comes to the summertime. I mean, it's so hot. The devil's like, you know what? I'm gonna take a break in some of them schools. And what will happen? You have teachers that will quit altogether when she's watching or teaching other people's children. Who's watching? Ours. Ours is of age, but when you have someone, you're watching somebody else's kid for 2 hours. Who's watching yours? The school systems have set it up to where you can't even bring your kids inside the school for liability issues. So now who's going to pay that 2 hours that you're giving? Is that 2 hours you got to pay for daycare for your own kid? And you have a lot of students out here that are constantly craving the attention of their parents. Now you've taken away 2 hours of that, because it's bad enough that a lot of times they're not with, well, I wouldn't say bad enough, but they're not with their parents for at least 7 hours out of the day. And now we're going to take away 2 hours. So there's some logistical things that need to be looked at when we talk about such a plan. I don't think that Senator Harris really thought in depth about the program, because I know for a fact when you extend school year over the summer and you have school systems that are trying to save money, AC costs money. And that's not part of the grant. The energy use is definitely not part of that grant. It is strictly just for personnel. So, that's my last word. So, Reggie, your last word?
But I don't have a last word tonight. I don't. I mean, let's just take time off to take a break the rest of the month and December, and just come back strong in January.
And I'm thinking, how are we going to hold our tongue until January during these impeachment hearings? It's going to be a tough one.
That's one reason why I did not include that as a topic on here. Because I figured you would talk about it on your own. And that will be interesting. That will be interesting. Maybe we'll be able to talk about it in January. Talk about something in January. So.
Yeah, we'll see. Tony, welcome back.
Tony. Oh, also, before I forget, the opinions and views on this show do not represent those of Real World News TV. So any comments made by myself, Reginald Kearney, or Shara Tappan are our comments alone and not that of Real World News TV.
Well, I mean what I say.
I was like, where'd that come from? We are Real World News TV. What?
I mean what I say. So I don't care who thinks that I shouldn't express. I'm going to express.
I didn't say that. Disclaimer. Yeah.
Whatever. All right.
Hurry up and get a bean. I know you want to get off and get a bean. Let's hurry up.
Go out and get some.
What does that say, Terry or Tara? What does that say?
It's Tara. It's backwards.
Oh, okay.
Can you read backwards?
This stuff will get you high, for real. I didn't know.
I can just walk past it. So secondhand, third-hand smoke will get me.
And now that I've said that, I'm like, oh dear Lord, I work for a transit agency.
Well, you didn't eat that, so you're fine.
Yeah. All right. Well, great show, you guys. Great job. And, as we wrap this 2019 season up, wrap up the year, I want everybody to reflect as to what we have talked about, throughout this 2019 year, some of the topics and subject matter that we've addressed. But above all, I want you to have a discerning nature as to what you see and what you hear here on Real World News. But also, above all, I do want to thank everybody for their continued support, for tuning in and being a part of our network. Our number one has always been Miss Jacqueline. And I just want to continue to say that, without her support, man, I don't know if we'd be where we are, because she has been a true catalyst in sharing the shows. She comes out, she supports me at the events that I'm doing. Everything about Real World News, Hot Topics Talk Radio, and Man to Man, the entire network. Jacqueline has been our greatest source, and we really want to say thank you personally to you. For those who have just started tuning in, you being a part of these broadcasts are equally as important. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again and more of your friends and family. What the hell are you laughing at?
He's laughing at my flyby.
Oh, see, I'm looking at a camera. I'm not looking at y'all. But again, we do thank you, because through all the ups and downs that this network has gone through, the fans, the people who follow us, you're the ones that make it happen. And I can't say enough for this team. Real World News, Hot Topics Talk Radio, and Man to Man. I could not do any of this without you. I thank you for being a part of my vision. And oh boy, this is why I continue to do this.
He's smoking something, okay? He's drinking something.
Yeah.
I did say I was drinking on the job, didn't I?
Actually,
she got some cannabis tea.
Yeah, actually,
no, I got some coconut liqueur, even better.
I can actually ship this to you. I can go to the store and have them ship it to you. You want to try it?
Not a good idea.
Probably against the law.
If it's shipping from the store, no, it's
not a good idea.
I plead the fifth.
Remember, I live another life as a judge. Can you see me getting arrested in my own house?
I've been, with all your talk about matches and whatnot, I just figured it was a matter of time.
You'd be like, I thought they were black jelly beans. I thought they were black jelly beans.
As I was saying, you guys, I couldn't say enough that would truly express what I feel about each one of you. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. Because, hosts have come and gone. People, oh my God. Homie.
You win.
Seriously, guys. Okay.
People like tuning in.
I don't have anything else to say.
I want to say good night. See you next
year. Good night.
Have a good Thanksgiving, good Christmas, good Hanukkah, and good
Merry Christmas, Hanukkah Kwanzaa.
Yeah, happy Kwanzaa.
Yeah, all that.
Happy
New Year. Okay.
Happy Coconut Rum Day.
Oh, that's what we're drinking.
Happy
Bean Day. Thank you everybody for continuing to support us, and we will be back to see you in 2020, the second week of January. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
You better have your shirt by then, Derek.
Yeah. Look at that.
No speak English.
Whatever. Deport.
Peace and bless.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks again.
Too much.
Let's get out of here. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you back here in January, second week of January of 2020. God bless. Be safe. And we love you. Sincerely, we do. We love you. Good night, everybody.